Hi everyone, it's Chrissy Civic, career coach and corporate trainer and founder of eatyourcareer.com, helping you create a nourishing professional life. Today I'm doing something a little bit different. I am doing our April Q&A session as a pre-recorded video for you instead of a live webinar. And it's not the way that I would prefer to do it, but for those of you who were on our session last week, you know that we had some huge technical difficulties and I was speaking for a few minutes and no one could see me or hear me. So I looked into rescheduling that session and it just looked like it was going to be too much trouble for you. You were going to have to re-register and I would have to inconvenience you to ask you to set aside time to make it to another live session. And I just didn't want to do that. We'll get back to our live webinars in May. But for today, I'm just going to go ahead and address the questions that I had submitted for the April session, and then you can go ahead and submit any other questions you have, and I'll be sure to address those in our May session. All right, so I'll jump into our first question here. This person says, I've been reading your book about how to become proactive. That's the Proactive Professional. For those of you who haven't gotten your copy yet, it's available on Amazon. This person says, thanks for the book. I have a question about how to avoid overstepping when working with another administrative assistant for the same department. Furthermore, I've joined this team because I'm replacing one of the assistants who is on maternity leave. It's a 6-month contract which started last January. My manager and some of the members of this team believe they have asked me to cancel a meeting room when the meeting has been canceled. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong, so they think they have to tell me what to do. So this is an interesting question because it's very specific. It's talking about this one specific situation. But I think what the person is getting at is that it's taking some time to build up trust with her new colleagues. This is a short-term contract. She's there for 6 months, and it sounds like what's happening is that things are going on and people are telling her or him to do something when this person's already done it. And in the spirit of being proactive, you know, the whole idea is to take initiative and you do what you know needs to be done without waiting to be told to do it. And the problem when you're new in a role is that a lot of people don't know that you're capable of being proactive. And so they will tell you to do things, they'll remind you to do things, and perhaps you've already done them. And that gets really irritating because you're thinking, you don't have to tell me to do every step of my job. I know how to do my job. So my recommendation for you is a couple of things. First off, recognize that it takes time to build trust, and you might have to repeatedly tell people that you already know to do something or that you've already taken care of it. I always say, and I realize it sounds a little bit derogatory, but it's true, that training people is like training dogs. You have to use repetition, and you should also use positive reinforcement. So when people are instructing you to do something and you've already taken care of it, you can just let them know, I've already taken care of it. You can maybe pose a question and you can say, for the future, is this something that you want me to wait for your instruction on, or is that good that I went ahead and just took care of it? So you're just kind of reinforcing how the situation has played out and you're opening up the discussion with the person. So hopefully that helps, and I do encourage you to just be patient with your new team. Again, it's a short-term contract, so it does take time to build up trust. In 6 months, you might not reach it, and that's okay. You can continue practicing your proactive skills and continue attempting to show them what you're really capable of, and perhaps it can turn into a longer-term contract in the future. Okay, now for our next question. This person asks, how do I re-energize my career when the people I work for want to handle their own work and don't keep me in the loop on important things? Great question. And I have the feeling that this person might be an administrative professional. I know that I have a very large audience of administrative professionals who are part of the Eat Your Career community. So because of the way that this is worded and the questions that are being asked, I am going to assume that this is someone who's in a support role. And what tends to happen, it's a really common frustration that when you're in a support role, the people you work for want to handle their own things. And that can start feeling really frustrating because you're not being utilized and you're not being leveraged because the executives you're supporting are just doing things on their own that you could realistically be doing for them. So one of the recommendations that I always make for administrative professionals is to really be vocal about the responsibilities that you would like to take on. So find what some of those specific things are that your executive is doing that you should be doing and point those out and say, I'd really like to handle this. A great suggestion here is to use a trial and review period. So you're just saying, I'd like to take on this responsibility for 30 days. We can test it out. You can see how you like the way that I do things. If it really doesn't work for you and you want to have that responsibility back, I will be happy to hand it right back to you. That way, the executive has some peace of mind in the situation. They don't feel like they're just releasing control of this thing infinitely. They realize that it's just a short-term trial and they can always take it back if they want to in the end. So that's the first thing I would recommend for you. The second part of the question asks about people who don't keep you in the loop on important things, which is yet another very common frustration for administrative professionals, lack of communication. And communication is an essential part of the role. So when people aren't keeping you in the loop on important things, there's a couple of things to do. Number one is, again, be vocal and really articulate the information that you didn't have and how it would be useful to have maybe had this information a little bit sooner, because then you could have been more proactive, you could have perhaps prepared a little bit more for whatever situation you're dealing with. So articulate that need and the consequences of not having information. Also recognize that there's a lot of different ways that you can get information. So it doesn't necessarily have to be directly given to you. You can go out and get information by simply observing and listening to what's going on around you and making some direct inquiries. When your executive is talking about something, you can say, okay, how does that relate to this particular item that's over here? So you're starting to make some connections and really create a dialogue with your executive. So perhaps the executive isn't giving you the specific information directly, but you're kind of backing into it by asking the right questions. So I hope that was helpful, and we will move on to the next question. This person says, one of my responsibilities is to record my boss's time daily, but he usually waits towards the end of the month to dump his timesheets on my desk. That sounds familiar. He ignores my reminders. What shall I do? Great question. Another common frustration for those who are in support roles or administrative types of roles that have to do this sort of thing. And again, remember, repetition is the key for training people. But you have a very important statement here, because you say that one of your responsibilities is to record the boss's time on a daily basis, and he's waiting till the end of the month. So my question for you is, who set that responsibility for you, and is that an accurate responsibility? If your boss isn't giving you what you need to do it on a daily basis, perhaps in his mind, this is not something that needs to be done on a daily basis. So my recommendation would be to go directly to your boss and say, hey, the expectation that was previously set up for me is that this should be done on a daily basis. But it appears that you feel that this is a better task to be done only on a monthly basis. So should I adjust my understanding of my responsibilities and my expectations? Open up that conversation, and you may find that this isn't even something you need to be worried about. All right, hope that one was helpful as well. We will go to our last question now. This person says, I've worked as an admin for the same company for almost 10 years. My responsibilities have changed a lot over the years, so I've achieved new skills because of it. I'm growing bored in my position and feel limited due to politics within my organization. My education is not in admin, so most of my skills are either natural abilities or self-taught over the years, really common. When I look for new job opportunities, I feel unqualified because I don't have formal training. Any advice on how to mentally move beyond this self-limiting thought process? I know on-the-job training has to count for something, yet I'm not sure how to sell myself. Ooh, I love this question so much, and there's a couple of good things that I want to share here. So the first part about it is that this person says that their education is not specifically in admin. Incredibly common. A lot of people end up in careers that they didn't specifically go to college for, or they don't necessarily have any specific certification to be able to do. However, in the administrative field, there's a lot of opportunity for getting certifications, and many of them are very affordable. They can be done online, and they're fairly quick to do. So if the feeling that you don't have formal education is something that's holding you back, it's an opportunity. You certainly can go and get some formal education. I'm a huge advocate of the PACE certification. As some of you may know, I participated in putting that certification together, and I created 2 of the modules that are in it. It is a great program. It's put together by the American Society of Administrative Professionals, and I'll be sure to include a link down below so that you can have easy access to that information. Aside from PACE though, there's also a variety of other different certifications you can do. The IAAP has the Certified Administrative Professional, or CAP, certification, which is another great program. Joan Burge over at Office Dynamics has World Class Assistant, another great one. So I'll include links to all of these that I've mentioned below, and I encourage you to do a little bit of research and perhaps invest in doing 1 or more certification, just so you feel like that education piece is kind of taken care of. The other part that you mentioned though is about on-the-job training, which absolutely is an important factor that you want to be talking about on your resume. And in truth, accomplishments speak much louder than education. Yes, education is great. It shows your commitment to your career path. It shows that you're really dedicated and you've chosen being an administrative professional as your career path for yourself. So that's great, but your accomplishments are really the thing that most hiring managers and recruiters are looking at. They want to know that you've used these skills on the job and you've used them to contribute value to the organizations that you serve. So you want to be focusing in your resume and in your discussions with other potential employers, you want to be focusing on those specific things that you did in your role to deliver value. As much as possible, you want to be telling stories and creating statements that talk about the different obstacles that you faced in your role, the actions that you took, and the specific measurable results that you achieved. The more that you can tie your accomplishments to numbers, the better. So talk about things that you did that improved efficiency or improved quality of service or created a reduction in expenses. All of those things are really so much more valuable because they're really tangible. They show how you used your skills in the workplace, versus education just shows that you completed some classes, right? You committed the time and maybe you passed a test, but it doesn't necessarily show that you know how to translate that education to the workplace. So in order to be a real powerhouse for a job hunt, get a little bit of additional education and really focus in on those accomplishments. In terms of shifting your mindset, I hope that you can just realize that your situation is very common. This is something that comes up a lot for administrative professionals, and there's a lot that you can do to improve your circumstances. So don't feel like you're in this little bubble and that you're all alone and that you don't have any prospects out there, because it's absolutely not the truth. There's so much that you can do, and I hope that you'll put these things that I've talked about into place, and you'll start to see that there's a lot of opportunities out there for administrative professionals, especially someone like you who has 19 years of real world experience behind you. All right, so that completes the questions that were submitted through the automated form for the April Q&A session. I'm so sorry that we're not able to be on a live webinar together so I can answer your questions live and in person. I promise that I will get the technology issues sorted out come next month for the May session. I do also want to thank those of you who were on the session and you immediately sent me really kind email messages and just said, "We understand technology is so frustrating. Thank you for doing these sessions anyway." That just warmed my heart. It made me feel so much better on what was a really stressful day. By and large, the vast majority of you were incredibly understanding. So I appreciate that. And I would also appreciate your continued understanding should these situations happen again in the future. We don't control technology as much as we'd like to think that we do. Anything can happen, especially when we're trying to do live sessions that require a lot of internet bandwidth, which can create problems on my end, it can create problems on your end. So I just appreciate if you would be patient and always let me know when problems have come up for you. I would love to just be assessing the technology that we're using to determine if this is the right one to continue using in the future. Changing is a huge process and I would rather not undertake it if it's really not needed. So we've had one really major glitch last week, but hopefully this coming week when we do our live webinar, everything will go smoothly and we can rely on this system in the future. All right, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and I will see you in upcoming sessions in the future. Thanks.